go get yourself on an allotment waiting list. Wow, hasn't it been such a cool, damp summer so far? At times the heating has even been on to warm the house through, and the winter jumpers are still not stored away. Therefore it was such a delight to have a warm Wednesday where I spent most of the day pottering in the garden at home, indulging in a slow breakfast whilst reading a gardening magazine kindly given to me by an allotment neighbour, so thank you very much for that. After a slow morning soaking up the sun, I planted out the first of my winter potatoes, potted on some purple sprouting broccoli and other brassicas before sowing the seeds of July. As the intensity of the sun began to fade, I headed over to the allotment to catch up on maintenance jobs. I got the mower out and started to do some long overdue bed edging, a satisfying task once you get going. The broad beans have produced the last of their cushiony pods, and the time has come to move them into the compost bin to produce new goodness for next year. I've picked up the variety The Sutton on recommendation of a subscriber. This variety says that you can plant them later in the season, or should I say earlier in the season, like this time of year, but I'm also going to save some to sow this winter as well. But if I can get a bonus harvest in the meantime, then that would be very welcome. Good afternoon and welcome to a new gardening vlog. If you're new here, my name is Dora and I have an allotment based in the north of the Cotswolds. It's my first year having an allotment and I am documenting my journey as I go through this first growing year. So today it is rather muggy. I think it's about 23 degrees, which isn't the warmest, but the cloud level is really low, so it's quite sweltering. We had a roasting day yesterday. I think it was hitting like 28 degrees and I was in the office just looking longingly out of the window. I've brought down a couple of Maris pear potatoes with me to get into the ground somewhere for a autumn harvest, hopefully. Slug dependent probably. And as you would have seen at the start of the video, I pulled up one of the broad bean patches and sowed some replacement beans. I'm going to start with pulling up the second broad bean area and probably actually putting the potatoes where those broad beans are. I haven't been down for a few days, so I'm going to start with a little wander around and see how things are progressing, especially after all of that lovely sun we had yesterday. So let's take a look. First off, I can't believe the size of these apples now. They are really coming along nicely. Does anybody recognise the variety of these yet? Goodness, this one is particularly large. I think I should probably knock off some of the smaller ones to allow less to develop but develop better. But on the other hand, I think I might just leave them to get on with it. But I'll definitely pick off these ones that were dying anyway. These are the broad beans that I was referring to. They're really gone over now. I've picked the last of the edible ones, so they will be coming up today. And this is where I'll be popping in those potatoes. My few peas that I put in this TP are starting to come along. And my dwarf French beans are starting to flower now, so hopefully I will see some beans soon. This variety is Stanley and the one back there is Purple Queen. I was starting to think that there might not be any courgettes to harvest this year because they have just been so slow. And my magnificent sunflower is just getting bigger and bigger. And in my last video, I mentioned that I am 5'5", and that was to give a bit of context as to how large this sunflower is, but it caused a little bit of amusement amongst a few people. I was thinking that I was showing off about my small height, which was not the case. But it's just getting even taller now. So what might be a regular height comparison update, I'm not sure if that helps show how huge it is. Maybe I'll have to start measuring it. Tree spinach is being fantastic as always. It could grow up to 5 or 6 feet tall, so I am quite intrigued to see how tall it's going to get. My sweet corn are romping away now. They're going in height order. I think this one's in the sunniest spot here. Just as I thought the mangetout were going over, they've really had a second lease of life. Definitely be picking lots of those today. My alderman peas, after a very, very slow start, are really picking up now. I'm going to pick some of these now, have a little munch on them before cracking on. Whoa. These are the biggest peas I've had so far. They're so sweet. So far I've just come down here, had a little look around, now I'm eating peas. I also brought a book with me which my neighbour popped over the other evening and gave me, called Blooming Flowers, A Seasonal History of Plants and People by Kasha Body. Not sure how you pronounce her name. Snippet says, not just a sunny celebration of everything floral, but a beautifully written book full of exquisite detail and laced with just the right amount of poetry. So, the contents has a chapter per flower and it's split by seasons. And as I'm just sat here eating peas and yappering, it just makes me reflect that actually this is what having an allotment is about as well. So it's not just coming down and going 100 miles an hour, always doing things and worrying about things that aren't going so well and so forth. Sometimes just coming down here and just spending some time is all you need. And actually this morning I was feeling really low energy and a bit lethargic. I think this heavy cloud is probably contributing to that. But now I'm down here and I'm just spending some time in this environment. I'm already feeling quite boosted and energized. So if you're on the fence about getting an allotment and maybe you don't think that you really need one, I couldn't recommend more highly. Or even just having a dedicated area of your garden where it's almost a play area to just grow veggies. It's just such a calming thing to do. So go get yourself on an allotment waiting list if that's something that you're thinking about. Does anyone else have the bad habit of starting one job and then getting distracted by another? So here I have my asparagus bed and the area was quite overrun with bindweed. So I did dig it over and dig out as much as I could. But what I'm having to do now is just keep on top of it and weed quite often. But yeah, I basically got distracted from preparing the bed where I pulled out the broad beans and started weeding here. So I've pulled out any that were around these two asparagus crowns and I'm going to come back and pull out this section here. Quite toasty and dishevelled now. I have prepared the area now where I'm going to pop those 2 potatoes in. I probably will put some more in at a later date. I'm aiming for some later succession potatoes. So I'm going to get those in now and then have a little reading break because I'm quite clammy. The area there where the broad beans are and where I'm popping in those potatoes is quite dry. Now I don't know if that's just because the tree is near that area or whether it's just because I haven't watered those broad beans at all since I planted them in early spring, and apart from probably when they were really young. So I don't know if it's that or the tree, but I'll give them a good soak when I plant these potatoes and just keep an eye on those moisture levels. And this time I'm going to make sure that I really earth these potatoes up as they go and mulch them with compost and grass and so forth, and keep a closer eye on them. If you haven't watched my video a few weeks ago where my main crop potatoes were starting to see the light and going green, which was really sad. So I am on a mission not to do that again. Anyway, I'm quite sweaty now, apologies. So I'm going to carry on. I'm thinking of planting the potatoes along this edge, and then in the middle there popping a couple of cabbages or something that I've got ready to plant out there. This is a rogue potato that was here from the person who had the plot last time. I'm just leaving it be for now. And then I've got some cosmos and borage and leeks over there. And I can just see that my leek atale that I sowed about 2 weeks ago is popping up. I'll quickly show you that. Look a bit like grass at this stage, but I'm very happy with that germination rate. I'm planting them a little bit deeper than I would if I was following traditional no-dig methods, but purely because it's quite dry and I don't want to run the risk of them seeing the light before I can earth them up. I'm also going to pop in a little bit of this rotten feed. Oh, it really does stink. We don't have a water supply here apart from at the very far end of the allotment we have a stream, so you can go and collect water there if you need to, but it's quite the trek. So thankfully these two big green butts are connected up to the shed, and then there are just lots of buckets that were here on the plot, so they do collect water, but they're just rather bare at the moment. Okay, so I'm going to pop these with the eyes up this time, not like the one I planted out the other day in the container at home. Oh, the sun has come out. Still quite a dark, moody sky though. Before I start another job and not finish this one that I've started, I'm going to finish weeding this asparagus bed. coming out a little bit wider than the original asparagus bed area because I'm just trying to reduce the path between the two beds. It is bothering me a little bit how these lines aren't straight, I must admit, and I could just use a string really to lay it out, but I'm putting that perfectionism aside. Oh, I have officially been rained off, even though I'm quite tempted to go and stand out in the rain to cool down. I managed to just finish roughly edging that asparagus bed. I am going to brave the rain and pick a few little courgettes and then head off home and make dinner.